Once upon a time there were two young men. There was Richard and there was Andrew, known as Dru. The men drank together, hiked together, and camped together. One day Dru told Richard that he was really a woman in the wrong body. So Dru was turned into Drusilla, and they went hiking, and they went camping, and they went drinking again, but this time as a man and a woman. Their story, the story of a number of different journeys, has now been told by Richard, the man, in his new book, Becoming Drusilla, the woman. Richard Beard and Dru Marland, good morning to you.
Hello, Gerry.
Yep, hello.
Good to have you with us. First of all, what an amazing story. Congratulations, Dru, to you for creating the story by virtue of being you. And well done to you, too, Richard, for capturing it. But it was an elusive butterfly to capture, wasn't it?
Well, can I say that I preferred capturing it than doing it? I'm glad it was Dru who did the doing. And I was happy just to do the writing. But she'll have to confirm that she probably thinks she got the best half of the deal.
Yes, I think so.
Well, Dru, you, of course, you did undergo the operation that almost dare not speak its name, and yet you don't really write much about that, Richard, in the book.
Well, it's more to do with our friendship and how that affects the way you feel about someone, because we were very good friends, and we made a habit of going off and doing really quite intimate things for two men together, sleeping. As you know, 2 men tents take about 1.5 men. Yeah. So we knew each other very well, and I had no warning about this at all, and Dru made this announcement. And the book's really about how you come to terms with that, how you maintain your friendship. And in the end, it was about coming to the realization and the revelation that Dru was the same person, the fact that it was possible she could be the same person and a woman. And once we discovered that, we could carry on doing the same kind of things, and now she just happens to be a woman who likes doing the same kind of things as I do.
I presume, though, Dru, I will come to you for further explanation in a moment, that you suffered the same sort of confusion that most heterosexual men in a situation like this suffer. That is, well, this is to do with being gay. I mean, I have still, and would count him as one of my very best friends, a gay man who was not gay as far as I was concerned for many years. The two of us travelled quite a bit together, and we certainly shared the same bed due to my slightly Presbyterian inclinations to try and save money occasionally when we'd be away working, and that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And when my wife told me that he had something to tell me that he was in fact gay, and I said he couldn't be friggin' gay. How could he be gay? He's been in bed with me, he didn't try to shag me. And of course I realised in a heartbeat that this was the vanity of the heterosexual man, of course, believing that every other man who was outside of that experience, would obviously find you attractive. Not so, of course. Did you have that fear? Did you find that clouded your...
Is this for me, Gerry? Sorry, yeah, I was just enjoying your story so much.
That fear, that, this couldn't be true. He's probably gay, and if he was gay, sure, I don't know what's this.
Well, no, the first one of the points of the book is trying to be as honest as possible about what my reactions were, and try and steer clear of any reactions which I thought were appropriate and which were sensitive, and to try and be true to what
you were really
feel.
Thinking. Yeah.
And one of the first reactions was exactly that. It was, well, if you're a woman and I'm a man, do you fancy me? That was one of the first.
And if not, why not?
Well, there was, so that came. There were other considerations as well. I mean, I had to, dealing with a lot of stuff at the same time. But as I found out, obviously, then I went away and I read some books. I found out a lot about it because when it's close to you, when it's a friend, you want to know, what's happening. You try to understand. That's part of the nature of friendship. And I see that really the sexual side of it has got very little to do with it. I mean, it is to do with gender, which is a different thing. But I think Dru can probably explain that better than I can.
Dru, let's go back in time. I mean, you were a very attractive boy.
But thank you.
And, obviously there's maybe some tiny little bat squeak of a hint there that of things to come in the future. But you seem to have all the trappings of being a man, and you had a man's job. You were an engineer on a ship. You had a man's motorbike. You seemed to do manly things. You went walking with Richard. When did you first feel that you were a woman trapped in a man's body?
In my early teens, really. I mean, the things I do, I've never really felt that I should constrained by what I should do simply because of who I am. I do not think there is anything intrinsically masculine about riding motorbikes. I know lots of girls who do, and I know some girls who are much better mechanics than I am. I think people who allow themselves to be constrained by that sort of thing are a bit sort of, self-limiting and unimaginative.
Yeah, Dru was always a non-conformist kind of person, even if not necessarily in this way before. She was never someone who just followed.
That's laudable, and something is something we should all aspire to, not to stereotype ourselves, or indeed, shoehorn ourselves into operating only within certain parameters. I agree with you, but let's be honest about it. Generally, that's exactly what we all do. We go, I ride motorbikes, I'm a bloke. I go to football matches, I'm a bloke. One would think that was kind of the image that a lot of people, including you, Richard, had of Dru.
Well, yeah, and I do. And in the book, one of the things I was interested in is whether Dru had been doing this on purpose to kind of reassure herself. That, look, I got my cigs in my top pocket, and I've got my leather jacket and my bike, and we're off to the pub. And whether that was a way of convincing herself really that she should stick where she was, because obviously it's a huge decision, changes your life, ruins a lot of things in your life if change is threatening to you. So I did wonder about that, but in the end that wasn't really the case. I think Dru is just a woman who likes riding motorbikes, and that was something we had to come to terms with. But I accept completely what you're saying, is that it's very hard to get away from these ideas, and I'm as guilty as that as anybody, and I approached this whole thing with a lot of prejudices, which I didn't really know I had, and it's been very interesting for me to realise that these were prejudices.
You have to have a sense of humour about your prejudices.
Why should a woman not work as an engineer in a cross-channel ferry?
Now, Dru, I've had some personal experience. There was one particular young man I met many, many years ago, and he was a friend of another friend of mine, but I did get to know him quite well over this particular summer, and he, I remember, uttered these immortal words, strangely enough, while we were listening to Barbra Streisand's soundtrack from A Star Is Born. I don't know whether there was any connection or not, it's maybe too obvious, but he described that himself as a woman trapped in a man's body, and I remember thinking, that's bullshit. And then many years later, I came into contact with one of the two people on occasions just like this, talking to them about a similar experience. And so I was then thus forced, if only professionally anyway, to kind of go, well, God, my God, what must that be like? I mean, to talk about imprisoning. I mean, at least there's some hope of parole or escape or something in a physical prison. But to be trapped in a body, what did that feel like?
I'm not entirely comfortable with the description. It is used a lot, I know, and it's a useful shorthand for saying that one feels like a woman trapped in a man's body. I just feel like myself. The experience of having a male body was really unpleasant.
How unpleasant?
Well, I covered it up as much as possible because I just didn't like it, and I totally loathed the genitalia aspect of it.
You didn't like your penis?
Oh God, no.
We see now Richard and myself are quite fond, I'm speaking on your behalf, Richard, of our penises, and proud, yes, I would think.
I should say that's our respective penises. Not
yes, we haven't seen yours, so so I mean, so you can tell obviously that we're quite keen on being men. But you didn't like it at all, sure you didn't? Did it revolt you?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it was only a recent discovery that I realised that so many men are really very much attached to their penises, as it were. During some counselling.
And how did you express that? I mean, to yourself, what?
Just sort of loathing my body, really. And when I finally decided to do something about it, initially I started on a course of hormones, and the changes that wrought in me were absolutely terrific. It felt like coming home.
So I presume you went on estrogen therapy?
Yes, estrogen and progesterone. Yeah.
And of course that I believe it makes it's quite a dramatic change.
Yes. Change inside my head as much as anything else.
Can you describe that?
I'm rather used to how I feel now, but I vividly remember the first few weeks when suddenly, it's as though the curtains to the world had been pulled aside, and everything was so much more vivid. All my senses were sort of in overdrive. I do experience the world in a much more, in-your-face sort of way.
Do you believe that that's more typically female than male?
It was my personal experience, and I must presume so. Yeah.
There is a temptation, of course, for a man to try and sort of second guess that you had some sort of bereavement sensation for your penis and for your maleness, and that you looked wistfully over your shoulders, your masculinity drift away, but I presume that was not the case.
I think you're extrapolating a little there, Gerry.
Yes, I am. I'm sort of placing myself in your position, I think.
Yes. No, I was perfectly happy to leave all that behind me. All, not the physical aspects, the socialising aspects, male privilege, cheerio, a lot of it.
I did ask when I was doing the book. I asked the surgeon what they did with all the
bits
and pieces, and he said they threw them away.
Oh God!
Because they've got a freezer in Charing Cross in London, which is just full of them, and they got no more space for them, so they've got 20 years worth.
You have had the operation, and it's a substantial operation. It's not messing around now. And I've heard different versions of it. I've heard versions of it where the plastic surgeon has used the penis or parts of it in situ and intact to create a vagina and a clitoris, and it all sounds immensely complex and very fascinating. What kind of operation, can I ask you, did you have?
It was a penile inversion. It was a fairly straightforward operation. That's the standard technique used in Britain.
And what is that? Tantalise me.
It uses the skin of the penis to line the neo-vagina. That's about it, really. Well, it isn't about it. They do quite a decent job, really,
And do you have a clitoris?
Yes, I do.
And that is shaped or fashioned out of the glands of your penis, I presume?
Yeah.
What was your penis?
Yes, the nerves are intact, you know.
Of course, I gather we all start off as women anyway.
Yes, that's right.
Jerry, can I just come in a minute there and say that, I mean, obviously, all the questions you're asking, the questions which I asked myself as well.
Yeah, no, I'm there.
In the book, I mean, you're obviously very interested in that. There are very interesting, now with the internet, it makes the whole thing much more open to people who are just interested. And one of the things which came out, which I was really surprised by, was how interested some people were in the cosmetic result. and
As opposed to the emotional result.
Well, just as part of the process, that obviously the end result, what it actually looks like, the aesthetics of it, are become an important consideration. And now you can find medical websites which will have photos and.
Well, I've seen the websites of the vaginoplasty, the operation that actually that women can submit themselves to change or reconfigure or restructure their vaginas, and you look at that and you go, oh, holy mother. And there's some incredible work can be done there by all accounts. We've actually spoken with people who do it on this programme. But I do believe I'm experiencing, and Drew, you're very patient, I believe I'm experiencing the same things, Richard, and I went through this when I was reading the book as well, that I have to say one guy probably would have to go through, having spent so much time with another guy, and then is being told, well, in fact, I'm a woman. I mean, there's a kind of incredulity and shock and maybe a bit of disappointment. Would that be right?
Well, I think the first thing is, boys being boys, is you laugh. You think it's all a big joke.
Oh, yeah, don't be mad. You're a woman. Don't be bloody ridiculous.
And you think that someone's having a joke at your expense, that perhaps there's a whole gang of them and they've all, they've cooked this up somewhere and it's all going to be, later in the day everyone's going to have a good laugh about it and it'll all blow over. That's the first reaction.
Yeah.
But then later on there is this disappointment that you think, well, we're supposed to be friends.
Yeah.
You could have mentioned this before now. And that was a large part of it. And then there's another type of sadness, which is, well, if you've been suffering in this way, I thought we were having a good time. I thought we've had a laugh over the years, and I thought we were part of being friends is having a good time together. And if in fact you were deeply unhappy, then that brings into question your friendship. But what came out of the whole process of writing the book and talking to Dru at length and finding out about her life before I knew her as well, and everything she'd been through, was in fact she wasn't unhappy all the time. It has been part of her existence, but it wasn't everything. And this is something which in the more usual accounts is not taken into account. The fact that, yeah, that's part of life, but you can continue on living, doing all sorts of different things, you know, as a human being, and those aren't cancelled out by the fact that there is this one, albeit major, problem that you need to be overcome at some stage.
Dru, I presume you were sensitive to the fact that this was going to be an issue when you delivered the news that I am, in fact, a woman. That,
yes.
You know, and you must have realised that, well, he's going to... Well, first of all, he's not going to believe you. That's the first thing I presume you consider that. And secondly, that Richard might have felt very let down.
Yes. The thing is, you know, a long time ago when I decided that transitioning really wasn't the way forward, I made a sort of informal deal with myself that there was that I could keep it to myself if I just tried to get on with leading a normal life. In part, I was in denial myself as well. I felt that sort of coming out with these issues would just complicate matters for everyone and for me, and that as I say, if I could keep them tamped down, then my reward for that was to try and just get on with being normal. It didn't work, obviously. It became progressively more and more difficult and ultimately impossible. And that was when the crisis came, and I told people, yeah, it was a bit of a letdown.
And Richard, I mean, you know, it's quite evident in the book that you became almost compulsive about questioning Dru. You know, when did it start? How did you tell your wife? Are you now, or have you ever been attracted to men? Which, and of course, the subtext of that is, have you ever been attracted to me? And Dru, how did you react to that questioning?
Patiently. I mean, as patiently as one can. The thing is that most people do not knowingly, or have not knowingly, really met any transsexuals, and so they don't really quite know how to behave or what questions to ask, and I'm perfectly happy to educate if they want to know, you know, because people. I think the worst response is people being afraid to ask. Richard, fortunately, was not afraid to ask.
And I really wanted to ask those questions, which you don't see asked very often. I mean, things about, I mean, we talked about some of them earlier on, but also about, you know, the first time Dru had sex. What was that like? You know, being intimate with a woman's body for the first time. The questions about the first time she went out dressed as a woman, presented as a woman in public. All these questions which are a bit delicate, and there's a certain amount of political correctness around them. I just wanted to ask the question, and Dru answered it. You know, she was very generous with her replies.
Well, the first one you've got to get out of the way is, like, in the words of Ali G, is you gay? You know, or what is it? I mean, what's your sexual orientation now?
The same as it ever was, Gerry. I'm attracted to women.
Right, you're attracted to women. Does that make you a lesbian then?
Yes, that's the usual definition.
Okay, right. Okay, so you're attracted to women. So that answers that part of it then, Richard. Not attracted to you, so...
yeah, she got off the hook there, you see.
Yeah, that was an easy escape. And have you had sex with a woman?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, yes, but not since transitioning. I'm just having a quiet time at the moment, you know.
And are you looking forward or hoping that will be the case, that you will have a woman?
Neither looking forward nor... one lives in quiet hope and expectation of the, the little lightning strike.
And would you be revolted or repelled or queasy or uneasy about having sex with a man?
I try to keep an open mind about that sort of thing.
Right.
Gerry's radio always like this in Ireland at 10:30 in the morning.
Well, I mean, you know, we try to...
That's great.
I'm legally obliged to get to the nub of the matter.
I'm going to move.
Now, the one thing I think that anybody in your position, Dru, worries about, and I can actually understand this, I'm vain enough to understand this, is, am I going to pass muster? Will I, you know, what am I going to look like as a bird? Like, will it be good? Will it work? And of course, then the double-edged sword here for you, Richard, is, well, if he rocks up and he does actually look good as a female, as a woman, will people think we're a couple when we're out together?
Well, I'll let Dru go first.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Were you very nervous about how you were going to look? Would you pass the test?
I don't know. passing the test isn't quite how I'd look at it again.
No, but the rest of us do, though.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
The practical considerations like that were secondary to the imperative actually to transition. For me, that was an essential, and everything else followed from there. It is the ability to pass means really the difference between having a perfectly normal life and having people throw rocks at you, and that's that's as simple as that. That's why it's important for me that I should pass.
And Richard, what were your feelings on that?
Well, they went.
This was still your pal. No changes in that one.
Well, they went through a lot of different stages, and I think they would be pretty much what you expect at the beginning. We'd been very kind of normal sight to do blokes out and about, motorbikes, whatever. It was very clear what we were. And then I had to deal with this new. I was going out with, and I say this in the book. I say there's someone who looked very strange, and that was new to me in this sense, and I thought that everyone was looking. So I was very self-conscious, and I think I was probably more self-conscious than Dru was. But then you realise that all that becomes, less and less important, and you realise that these feelings are kind of unworthy, really, and you can become a better person by getting rid of them. And I was thinking at one stage we'd go out to the pub, and in the book we had the pub in the middle of Wales, and I'm thinking, what are people going to think because I'm with a woman who's not very attractive? Is that really going to ruin the fact that you can have a great conversation, you have a laugh, and you're having a good time? Is it really you should be able to? I felt I should be able to get over that.
Yeah, but there's loads of things that we should do, but that
I know
we're not able to.
But I mean, I felt in this case it was really, it was worth doing because I like Dru's company. I want to spend.
And how did you get over it? I mean, how did you get by the fact that I'm now this is my pal, and my pal's now done something that's created a kind of comedy sketch around herself.
Well, I think one of the ways to get over it is to realise it's not a comedy sketch. It's not the funny belly laugh of a bloke dressed up as a woman. That's not what it is at all. So once you start getting away from that, you become more familiar with it. Dru herself becomes more practiced the whole time at learning herself. I mean, she's learning herself, and therefore it just becomes very natural for both of us.
And there is, I presume, an awful lot of learning in it. I'm watching with increased entertainment my 8-year-old daughter. She's got 2 older sisters and her mother, quite a lot of females to help practice and train with, and I'm watching her learning about makeup, learning about how to walk on the heels and how to dress, how to coordinate, and I'm just looking and going, wow, God, she's becoming a woman, but it's on her terms and over a very, very long period of time. You had to telescope it into a short period of time, a very short period of time, Dru.
Well, yes. Well, it's not a thing that begins and ends. It
goes on forever.
Well, yes, rather. I've got a lot of sort of male socialising behind me to
shed.
Yes, to learn from, if you like. I never particularly enjoyed. Well, I never enjoyed socialising as a male, and. So I wasn't perhaps I might not have been experiencing the world as a fully socialised woman, but I don't think I was experiencing it as a fully socialised man either. But yes, there's a lot to learn, always.
And what was the most exciting part of it? What was the best bit?
I think the best bit is when nothing happens. I meet people, we socialise normally. I'm accepted. That's, quiet happiness.
And Dru is often mistaken for my wife when we're together, and
that's good, isn't it?
I think it is good.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. I would say that's success. Now, of course, you did, as a man, have girlfriends, and inevitably they must have been incredibly curious about this when it happened and you announced it.
I don't know about curious, perhaps. I mean, my then wife was, she was very understanding. I'd been, at the point when I came out fully, there'd been a sort of progressive set of disclosure over the previous years. Ultimately,